we've just been speaking for a grand total of 40 minutes about nothing to do with what we plan to talk about, because there's lots of exciting things going on in both of our private lives, and we haven't had a catch up for a while.
Yes.
That's all things that will come out, I'm sure, at some point in the future, as and when is appropriate. Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit tired. I've got slight eye bags, as you can see, but I would say, compared to last week, I am more human. I really struggled last week. I was from that challenge, the challenge which we were about to talk about. I was fucked, should I put it bluntly. I think physically it wasn't as hard as some things I've done, but mentally it was really, really hard. And the bit I definitely struggled with was the cold. And I think that's what made me feel very run down and not very well last week. Because we were going to record this last week, and I messaged you and I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I was like how I was when we planned to record the discussion about 107 TDF. I felt like that.
Yeah.
When we first talked.
It seems, would you say it was comparable? Because obviously the length of time is so different on these two challenges.
No, it's not comparable. So with 107 TDF, the recovery time, I think in total, basically the length of time of me feeling shit was about 3 weeks. The length of me feeling shit after this challenge was probably about 3 or 4 days. So in that sense, it's not comparable. I would say it's comparable in the sense that it hurt, and I mean, I'd expect it to hurt, to be honest with you. Like, it's kind of part of the parcel, isn't it, I think? But I mean, the closest sort of comparison I could think of was like the 24-hour TTs. And I would say that they are physically much harder, but mentally easier.
We should go back a second and just explain for anyone who isn't aware what actually the challenge was that you did.
Yeah, so was it the 20 something of October, 28th of October, not October, November, get the month right. So the 28th of November, I think it was, I cycled up and down Box Hill 91 times to raise some awareness from a pretty scary statistic. One that I mean, it really kind of shocked me, to be honest with you, when I found out. And it's that the statistic is that 13 men a day choose to take their own lives. So that's 91 a week. So I rode up and down Box Hill 91 times, descending to what would be the depth of the Mariana Trench. So it's 11,034 meters. Obviously, descending that, you've still got to climb it. So you still have to climb 91 reps, in my opinion, to do it properly. Some people said, oh, why don't you just drive up to the top and descend it? And I was like, that's not how you do it properly. So 91 times up, 91 times down. And I did it starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, or just gone 6 o'clock in the morning. And I finished at about lunchtime on the Sunday, I think it was, something around lunchtime. And yeah, it was hard. But what was I think one of the things that came out of it that was really incredible was the fact that it raised awareness to a very scary statistic to a lot of people. And I got a lot of people message saying, I did not know that. And so I really hope that that's kind of helped people to go, maybe I should check in with someone that I've not spoken to for a while and just see how they are. And I actually did have someone message me who said that because of this, it was his friend's, it was his brother, I think it was. And basically his brother went missing on the way to work, and he jumped on his bike to try and find him, and they found him, which is really quite, I don't know, it hit me pretty hard when I got that message, actually. And that was over the weekend while I was doing it.
That's horrible. And obviously you mentioned that horrible statistic. And part of the reason that you were highlighting it is because of the work that you're doing to raise funds for Movember.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone who doesn't know, in the UK. Is it abroad as well? Movember?
Movember's actually an Australian charity originally.
Right.
It started off as being a thing that a bunch of mates did as a bit of a challenge at first, and then they sort of worked out. It was purely originally, it was just grow a moustache during November. That's what it was. It wasn't anything orientated around a charity. And then they slowly sort of realized that actually this could become something to raise or to change the face of men's health. Originally looking at, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, and then especially this year and in the last couple of years, that they've really focused across on men's mental health. And this year, that was something they really pushed, was making sure that you're checking in with friends, making sure you're, you know how to talk with someone who might be having a hard time. And they I found it very flatteringly asked me to be a sports ambassador for them. And of course, mental health is something that's very poignant to me, having had my own struggles in the past, and also having had to witness the not so fortunate side of what can happen to people a couple of times in my life. So it's something that's very important and close to me anyway. And Movember a few years ago helped out a lot personally with something that was going on in my life. So I think that as a charity, what they do, and not just the one-to-one basis, the amount of resources and information they actually have through their website on how you can keep in touch with someone and how you can look out for someone and how you can check your bollocks, for example, is so good. One of the big success stories that came out of it of Movember this year that I thought was really lovely to read was they've set up virtual pubs for guys that would normally go to a football match, and they wouldn't necessarily talk about their feelings at a football match, but it was that social aspect of being with a bunch of mates and then going to the pub. That was obviously with COVID, that got wiped away for so many people. And it allowed, Movember made a real point of trying to set up these virtual pubs to allow people to still have that interaction with friends and family. And it's not necessarily that they might not have opened up about things and issues and problems they were having, but it meant that there was that social connection. And that's one of the things that they have been really sort of poignant about this year is making sure there's that social connection and keeping in touch with people.
I think it's really important as well, because you mentioned about the sort of social situations for guys and speaking about what's going on. And I think that's sort of where the seed of Movember started, wasn't it? It was with sort of checking prostates and checking for testicular cancer, because I guess as a generalization, guys are less likely to go to the doctors and get seen and get tested because of embarrassment or stigma. And it's kind of the same with mental health. So I remember seeing a statistic from Movember that was saying of all of the suicides in the UK, it was something like 3/4 were men. And of course, all suicides are terrible, horrible, we would hope preventable, but they particularly shine a light on men because of the potential within our society for guys to be more quiet about their issues, not feel like they can sort of speak. So it's a sort of a male-led sort of campaign or male-focused campaign because of the extra issue potentially of guys feeling like they can't speak about the problems, right?
Yeah, I think there's, unfortunately, society, there's so many society-based things that have happened. And one of those issues that's happened is this whole be a man, like you don't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about your emotions. That's manly to not talk about it. When actually, personally, I think it's more manly if you do open up and are honest about how you're feeling about things. So unfortunately, that kind of mentality, which has been drilled into generations of people, quite frankly, has been something that's been the undoing for a lot of people, unfortunately. And what Movember are really trying to do is just to encourage people to have that opportunity to start to reach out and maybe be more of a man by discussing how they really are feeling and being open and honest about the situations they're in and the cards they've been dealt. And, you know, 2020 has been a fucking hard year for everyone, whether you're male, female, non-binary, whatever you class yourself as. It's been an incredibly tough year for, you know, everyone in the world, quite frankly. And I think it, you know, there's definitely a concern that I have a real concern that the statistics for this year are going to be even higher. We won't know probably for another year at least, because there's so many potential complications that could be playing into it this year, more than we've ever had before. But hopefully, you know, people start to see and understand the work that Movember are doing and how. And there's lots of charities doing very similar things. Samaritans as well is another great charity, and hopefully that, as it's starting to get more traction and public visibility. And one of the things that Movember does very well is get public visibility. Hopefully it's going to start to make things a bit better.
Absolutely. I think my personal opinion is that, specifically male targeted campaigns like this are not only important for guys, but actually for society as a whole. You know, like I'm someone who believes that, you know, like in women's rights and equality, but actually I think targeting, you know, this idea that you talked about be a man, I think that sort of whole idea really is the sort of thing that fosters kind of like quite toxic masculinity, you know, and it's having an effect on guys themselves because they feel they're not able to speak, but it also is the sort of thing that fosters other potentially destructive traits that then impact, you know, other people as well. So it's really important to just kind of shatter all that kind of toxic, horrible crap that just kind of makes guys feel like they have to act a certain way or internalize their issues or turn to potentially negative crutches and act in a way that they feel forced into, you know. So I think it's for me, I think it's a really, really, really good thing. And I think it's awesome that you have sort of launched yourself into this. I mean, I obviously know how much charity work you already do for the Pay Centre, but it's been really great to see how much you've kind of launched yourself into this as well, and the amount of money you've raised as well is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's still, people are still donating, which is pretty breathtaking. And then obviously with the bike that's being raffled off as well, the proceeds for that are being split 50-50 between Pace and Movember, because I think it's only the right way to do it is to split it straight down the middle. They're both two incredible causes that are doing things that are changing the lives of people in very different ways. And the big thing for me about that bike was to make sure that it's, you know, it gets used. Someone loves it and rides it and goes and does their own adventures on it and challenges, whatever it is. Like, hopefully whoever wins it will be inspired to try and do something from that. And on a selfish way, like, part of me really would like a woman to win it. Slightly tailored towards the fact that it's a slightly smaller size, maybe.
It's small bike, isn't it? And I think that's really good as well, because I think with these kind of prizes, it all just generally with bike stock, it's really hard for small people to be able to get bikes like that. So it's kind of a rare treat. And also the bike is amazing looking. It's really, really cool.
Oh, I'm so like pretty blown away by how it came out. Actually, I saw it in person yesterday, and I obviously painted the frame, but I didn't finish the frame. That was done professionally by very good frame painters, get the right words, gun control, and the finishes are unbelievable, because it's I sort of insisted that it was a gloss finish, so it really brings out the colors really, really well. And yeah, it's stunning, really stunning. And that's also, I think that's coming up for £6,000, which is nuts. So I think this year's, like, I'm very proud of the amount of fundraising this year on a tough year. And I can't do it every year because I think it's hard to ask people every single year. So I try and do something every couple of years. And I'm very proud of on how, for such a tough year, it will be well over 20 grand. It'll be probably closer to 25, I would imagine, by the end of the year, which is, and I don't know about private donations that have come in for EV yet, because that's something that kind of comes up later date. But through the Just Giving pages, the Movember's actual own, you can donate direct to Movember, and through the raffle Bike has done through Virgin Money Giving, because you can split. That's the only one I could find that allows you to split the profits 50-50. I think there's going to be over 20 grand, probably closer to 25 grand by the end of the year to two incredible charities. And, part of it is it does, it makes me very humble and feel very good about having fundraised that amount for them. But also a lot of it is, I feel that it should be second nature to try and want to fundraise for causes that are about helping other people. For me, as a kid, my dad always said to me, like, do to others how you'd want them to do to you. Is one of the things that really sat with me for a long time, which basically translates to don't be a dick, which is also what he used to say to me. And that to me is like a logical thing to do. Is like, I may not necessarily be able to donate hundreds of thousands of pounds to charity, which I would love to do. If I was in the situation I could do that, I would. But how I can do it is by royally destroying myself, getting it as much exposure as I can to realize that I'm, putting myself close to breaking point for X reason or Y reason to highlight something. And from that, money comes in. So by giving my own time and my own physical efforts, people are donating. So that for me it feels really good to be able to do that. And I like to think that it also makes people feel good that they are supporting causes that are very important and very poignant causes as well. Well, I mean, over 20 grand, I'm really quite blown away by that, in all honesty. The generosity of people on what has been a tough year mentally and financially, I think, for people is really incredible.
Yeah, and I think you should be very, very proud of yourself. I think you also, you sort of touched on it, you have a brilliant way of how do I explain it, sort of letting people connect with you, and you sort of lead them into these sort of causes and charities in a fantastic way. You have a brilliant way of bringing people into sort of your story and the stories of other people. So it's fantastic, and it's really great to see you use something like cycling and these massive challenges, which are obviously quite taxing, but you love to do them and actually use them for some sort of selfless purpose. It's really, really cool. On that note, we should veer back into the challenge and let's talk a little bit more about it. So you sort of mentioned that the whole point of it was obviously around the 91 descents, but that also tied into trenching, which is getting to the height and I guess the descent of the Mariana Trench. So you mentioned what the actual total elevation of that was, but you did a little bit more, right?
A little bit more. I did like 800 meters more, 850 meters more. So it's basically Everesting is a big thing this year. Everyone knows what, like in cycling, what Everesting challenges are. It's doing repeats of the same hill. A trenching challenge is basically an Everesting challenge on crack. It's like extreme Everesting, because you're basically, you're doing like an Everest and a third, I guess, Everest and a half, I think. So great doorbell.
Let me know that Jimmy's walked out of the door. He just sent me there's a window behind and he put a little note up saying popping to the shop. So, sorry.
And so basically it sounds ridiculous, but so every time I was descending using this, my little Wahoo, which is absolutely filthy, and I would basically climb, descend, lap it. And the reason why I did that was because it was how I was keeping track of the laps.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this had a bit of a meltdown during the night. Technology does it sometimes. These things happen. And I had to stop, save the ride, and then start a new ride, basically. Hence, if you look at all of my, Strava, Komoot, whatever it is, there's 2 ride files. And also leading on from that, I think you know, I made a segment of Box Hill specifically to do it on, and it started at the junction at the bottom of Box Hill, and it finished. Where the cafe is at the top, which is actually further than the Box Hill official segment. Finished at the cafe at the top, where there's basically a road on the left hand side, there's a series of bollards in front of it, which kind of leads to the car park, and it was just past that bit of road where there's a hedge. That's where I turned. That was a segment I made. And I made that segment slightly longer because that specifically made it to 91 reps. So I think it would have been 11,040 meters in 91 reps, which is cool. The problem that happened, as I say, my Wahoo had a bit of an issue, and I also realized that when I was really fucking tired, I forgot to press lap a few times. And I just lost count. I literally just lost count. And so I think I ended actually up doing nearer 100 reps than 91 reps because I lost count. I was exhausted. And also, as we've alluded to before, like I struggle with anxiety, and this is a situation where extreme anxiety comes in, where it's like, I need to make sure I hit this distance or this elevation. So I'm just going to keep going. So I probably could have finished an hour and a half earlier than I did, in all honesty. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to make sure I hit it, which sounds silly. It does sound silly, but according to my actual Wahoo, I did 91 laps. Did I actually do 91 laps? I don't think so. I think I probably did nearer 100. The elevation ends up being closer to 12,000 meters and not 11,000 meters.
Oh, well. What can you do?
Only human at the end of the day.
I mean, I find it difficult to just like, you know, if you're doing sort of reps of something, I struggle to keep count after like a couple because your brain just wanders, doesn't it? So I can't imagine how much it wanders after 25 hours or something. What was the total riding time in the end?
25 hours and 34 minutes, I think it was. It's a lot of time on a saddle.
Yeah. And the total distance overall?
Oh my God.
It was like 400 odd, wasn't it?
I think it's 451.5 something kilometers. So someone messaged me the other day going, that's not even that impressive, riding 450k. And I was like, have you looked at the elevation? I was like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it. And I just replied saying, please have a look at the elevation. and then I got no response. I was like, meh, I've obviously answered that question.
Yeah. So did you have any kind of strategy or routine that you sort of got into? Was it like so many laps and then stop reps and then stop for food, or how did sleep come into it?
So I reckoned when I was planning this, if Box Hill was clear, you could do 20 reps in 4 hours, 5 reps an hour. And when I've done 24-hour TTs, that's always how I've broken things down, is into 4-hour slots. And that's normally because you can carry enough water and food without having ridiculously full pockets. You can normally carry enough for 4 hours. So my positive mind was like 20 reps and every 4 hours, 5 an hour. It's not doable on Box Hill. It's not doable unless it was empty. It's completely, you couldn't do it. It was doable in the night. It was doable when I first started, very early in the morning, but not doable in the daytime when there's a lot of cars and there's a lot of cyclists on there. There's just a lot of traffic going up and down. So I figured out that I could do 17 in 4 hours.
Right.
Still pretty good. And my tactic was to try and stick to 17 reps in 4 hours. In that 4 hour period, I'd have drunk 2 water bottles. So I was only using the smaller water bottles, this size, which is kind of fine. If I needed more water, I could get it if I needed it, but that was kind of fine for me. I chose not to take the bigger ones. And then I was doing 2 gels, 2 bars. So it's like roughly, that's kind of how I would do a 24-hour TT. There's a carb solution in the drinks. You're getting carbs from the gels, and you're getting some carbs from the bars as well. And it just breaks up what you're eating as well. And from experience, I've learned that there's very few gels that actually agree with my stomach over that kind of period of time. and the only ones that seem to work is the Martin ones. And I think it is purely because they're unflavored, they're like pH neutral, so it doesn't upset my stomach. We found out at the National 24 last year, I was really sick a couple of times, and from trying to figure out what it was to do with the specific gels I was taking then caused a pH imbalance in my stomach. You can't really test this without doing a 24-hour event with said product. There's no way of testing it, and you don't really want to do a 24-hour event before a 24-hour event, in all honesty. So that was kind of my tactic of it, was like 17 reps in 4 hours, 2 bottles, 2 gels, 2 bars. And I tried to mix up what the gels, I stayed with the same gels the whole time. The bars I tried to mix up with the flavors of them. I think citrusy stuff is really good because it like cleanses your palate. But I also knew towards the end of this challenge, there's going to be a point where I'm not going to want to drink a lot and I'm not going to want to eat a lot. So towards the end, it's just rely on gels, 1 bottle, and then so take more gels and less carb solution in your drink, because you just get sick of it, in all honesty. It's just the continual taste of it. You just don't want it anymore. And it's become something that when you're really tired, becomes something that you really start to like focus on, and you don't like it and it stresses you out. So towards the end, I was like, look, just 1 bottle of water, 1 bottle of carb solution, and then more gels to try and balance out the fact that I wasn't taking so much carb. And then you just get to a point where you just don't want any of it, that's fine. You've kind of banked so much additional food and substance, you've got it in your system. And then what I did as well was I bought some like, some wraps and some like pasta salads and stuff from Tesco. And that was when I never gave myself a time limit to how quickly I had to finish this. It wasn't about doing it in 24 hours. It was about doing it. It was about doing the reps. So I could stop for half an hour if I wanted to and eat some proper food, which was good. And that's really, and that having a savory, whether it was like, tomato pasta or, like a falafel wrap or whatever it was, it just broke up having the misogynist, like just sweet stuff all the time. And I was quite relaxed on how long I'd stop for. I did try and keep it to the 4 hours, but I wouldn't really go, if I stop for half an hour, I stop for half an hour. It's fine. These things happen. I didn't intend to sleep, but I accepted that there was a potential chance I would want to sleep. These kind of things that are over 24 hours, your body wants to go into sleep when it's dark. That's how the human cycle works. When it's dark, you want to sleep. You can kind of delay that onset for quite a long time. And if it's a 24-hour race where you're racing for 24 hours, you can definitely delay it for the whole race. When you know that something's going to run over 24 hours, especially when the conditions were not ideal. I mean, it was good in the sense we didn't really have a lot of rain, had rain at the start and a bit of rain at night, but not ideal in the sense that the temperature was down to 0, -1 during the night. And when it's really cold, your body does start to shut down and it does want to just go to sleep. So it was.
And your wahoo too, by the sounds of it.
Wahoo. Yeah. So it got to, I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't warm up. I think it's 4 or 5. To be honest, I don't really remember, but it was early in the morning. And I stopped to get some more water bottles, and I really couldn't warm up. And my partner has one of these like long puffer jacket things, like full length thing, like we see like football managers wearing. And literally grabbed it. She was like, "Do you want this jacket?" I was like, "No, it's fine. And she's like, "You're fucking having it because you're freezing." And I already had like a down jacket on, and I had like big thick gloves on, loads of layers on, wrapped this jacket around me. And we were talking about it the other night, and she was like, "You were like an icicle. You were so cold." And so anyway, I was kind of a bit blasé to it, and I was just like, "Look, I'm gonna carry on riding for a bit more." I had some food, I was swapping gloves and like jackets, like the long sleeve winter jackets. I was swapping them every 4 hours because they'd inevitably get a bit sweaty, gloves and the jacket. So just swap them, and the previous one would be just put on the radiator. The previous gloves, previous jacket on the radiator. So when I got in and put a new one on, it was a little bit toasty, and that was really nice. But this particular time, I just couldn't warm up, and I sort of thought, fuck it, I'm just going to carry on riding, see how I feel. If I get moving again, I'll warm up again. That was my theory, was like, just get right. I've got to ride up a freaking hill. I'm going to warm up. I didn't think about the fact that every time I descent, I'd get very, very cold very quickly again. So I think I did, 3 or 4 reps. I'm not sure because it is all a bit of a blur, this whole section. And after a couple, I could feel myself like nodding on the bike, proper nodding. And I've never really had that before, where I've been taking caffeine tablets to try and keep myself awake as much as I could, but I could feel myself really nodding. And I put that down to being as cold as I was. And Box Hill very early in the morning at that point was a bit icy. So I was descending it slowly, trying to make sure that I wasn't going to crash. Because if I crashed, that puts the whole thing in jeopardy. And I think after 4 reps, I text Fee and I was like, I'm going to come into the hotel. Can I come into the hotel? So to explain why I'm saying hotel here, there's a hotel at the bottom of Box Hill. I reached out to them and asked them if there's a possibility that I'd be able to stay there during this challenge. I was explained that it was for charity, explained the whole challenge, and spoke to the owners on the phone for a long time. The actual guidelines were like, you can't stay overnight in places. There are exceptions to those rules, and this is why I reached out to the hotel directly. And the exceptions are for notable charity causes and charity reasonings, and also if it is for work. So the hotel asked me what I did for a job, and I was like, I basically ride my bike. And then the owner was like, right, you're doing this for a charitable cause, tick, we can allow you to stay here. You ride your bike as a job, tick, we can allow you to stay here. We will list you as an athlete, which I found hilarious, thinking that I would order Domino's pizza at the end. We can list you as an athlete and explain that you're doing something for a charitable cause. So we can allow you to stay here. Obviously, still the restrictions, the COVID restrictions are in place, keeping distance. They were brilliant. I was so impressed with them, and they really helped out a lot. And they made sure they had someone available in the reception for 24 hours, which they didn't have to do, just in case anything happened or I needed anything. So anyway, I was at the top of the climb and I texted Fee saying like, I need to stop. This is getting dangerous. I don't feel comfortable descending. It's getting icy. This is what I thought I texted her. In reality, I probably just texted her saying, I'm stopping. But in my head, I was like, I need to stop. I feel like I could crash. Mm-hmm. This is not good. And I texted her and I was like, can I come into the hotel? And she was like, well, of course you can come into the hotel. You fucking booked it. So I walked into the hotel with the bike and everything. And I sort of said to I'm very proud of myself that I was mature enough to accept that I needed to do that. Me 3 or 4 years ago would not. Me now is like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. You need to stop. Your body is telling you to stop. You need to stop for a bit. And I think because I had already gone into this challenge with the mindset of it's not about completing it in a certain amount of time, it's about completing it. So I went into the hotel. I promptly took all of my kit off, apart from my bib shorts. I'm not really sure why. I think because they're quite warm. The old fleece lined, I kept them on. But I took everything else off, base layer, gloves, all the layers I had on, put it all on the radiator. I was filthy, like covered in mud, because there were quite a bit of rain during the night and in the early hours of the morning. And Sophie had laid like a towel or towels on the bed, so I didn't get mud on the sheets. And gone. I can't click, but effectively click. And 40 minutes.
Sound effect here.
Yeah. And 40 minutes, I slept for 40 minutes. And then I woke up, I set my alarm, and my intention was to set the alarm so that I'd be getting back on the bike as the sun was coming up. And that's a really good time mentally with these kind of challenges. I was like, right, if I wake up as the sun's coming up, by the time I get on the bike, the sun will be up. And then it's like, that's a bit more energy straight away. You're fucking tired anyway, but that's a little bit more energy. And so, yeah, it was 40-minute power nap, I think. I got up.
Get up again?
Yes and no. It was kind of hard at first, as in like, it was like, oh, fuck, everything really aches. But then I think because I knew what I was doing, I think then by then I'd woken up and realized what I was doing. I was like, yep, cool, straight into it. and jumped on the bike and carried on.
Cool.
I think that kind of explains how I broke it up.
I feel like having spent time with you, obviously doing 24-hour racing, people like AJ who does a lot of Everesting and double Everesting, and even supporting Francis, like the sleeping, although you're not allowed to sleep after one Everest, but like if you're doing a double Everest, sleeping is always almost like, some people don't think it's worth doing because it's hard to then get up and keep going again. It's almost easier. Like you're saying about, 3 or 4 years ago, you wouldn't have stopped because it's kind of like it's easier to keep going than stop and then have to get back on again. But it's interesting. I guess it's what comes with experience, actually. If you can get yourself into a mindset of getting yourself up again, sometimes actually just a little break can be a reset rather than I can't get started again.
I think I needed it because I think I could tell that like my power numbers were just dropping off a cliff. Like, my target to climb Box Hill was to be going between 200 and 250 watts. And that was very, I would not go above 250 watts. That was it. And that's not particularly high number, but when you're doing it that many times, it does take its toll on you. When I was doing these particular reps, I was struggling to hold 100 watts. And that was when I was like, this is not good. This could be dangerous. And I was like, and as I said from the start, I'd always listed this, that it wasn't about the time that it was done in, it was about finishing it. So because it was about finishing it, my head was like, if you need to stop, you need to stop. It doesn't matter. And I think stating that from the start allowed me to accept that it was okay to do. It's a very different situation when it is like a 24-hour race, 100%, but this was not a race. So straight away, you take away that competitive edge against thinking about anyone else doing it. It wasn't about achieving it in a certain amount of time. It was about achieving it.
Why did you choose Box Hill? And on reflection, would you say that it was a good choice?
It was a shit choice. It was a fucking awful choice of hill.
Why did you choose it?
I chose Box Hill because, first of all, it fitted in nicely with 91 reps. Okay. It fitted in perfectly with that. As I said, I made a segment and extended it slightly, but it fitted with what I wanted it to do. So that was a big sway factor. Obviously, there's other hills that would have fitted into it quite well. The problem is the big problem with 91 reps of a climb for a trenching challenge is that climb is going to basically be not very steep. Box Hill's average gradient, I think, is 5 or 6%. It's not very steep. The other problem is that Box Hill is actually quite a long climb. This is where it also was not good. So it's not very steep. It's quite a long climb. And it has 3 technical switchbacks on it. And I say they're technical because, one is slightly off camber, one is very tight, and the other one almost comes a bit more round on itself, which is the one at the lowest point, and it's really hard to see around. That's why I would say they're technical. I chose Box Hill as well because it's such a well-known climb. People in cycling know it. Like it's got, I guess, like has a slightly ironic chat about it because it was used in the Olympics and it's used in the Ride 100, but people know about Box Hill as a climb. So my head was going, when I was planning this, was like, what's a climb that people know really well in the UK? If I asked like 50 people, what do I reckon is going to be one on the top to come out? Box Hill. So for the exposure point, box ticked, easy. That means people are going to know what I'm doing on. And then literally is like, it's quite convenient to get to for me. Like I don't own a car, so I rent a car. I drove a car down the night before and, it's a couple of hours drive. So it's actually quite easy for me to get to. It's quite accessible. And it also meant that, in my head, I was thinking, I've got a climb here that people know. It hits the amount of reps I need to do. It's easy to get to. I did look at climbs elsewhere in the country, but I just didn't think it was practical to go down that route. As a climb to do, I would think it's probably one of the worst climbs you could Everest on, let alone do a trench on, because it's so long, it's so gradual, it's technical, and it's full of traffic. Yeah. If you were to do an Everesting on it, there's no way you can get around the fact that you're going to get stuck in traffic. It's inevitable.
Absolutely. And what I know of Everesting and picking Everesting climbs, the goal is always to kind of, you want enough steepness so that you can get it done quickly, but obviously not enough that it's going to wreck your legs. And you want something that's fairly straight to descend on, not only because it'll make you get done quicker, but also you're going to be going into darkness, aren't you? I mean, even if you do it in the summer, like, you know, when we did, I mean, obviously Francis was doing it on a BMX, so he was slower, but we even did that in the summer, and you're always ending up in darkness. And that must be pretty sketchy, kind of coming around those sort of what are quite fast corners. Ignore that, it's Jimmy again. So yeah, all in all, for a hill reps challenge that goes into darkness, it's an interesting choice for definite. But I guess that makes people, as you say, people know about it, so they're going to have an opinion on it, and it adds an element to it, doesn't it?
And you know, it meant that I think it caused a lot of discussion points from, you know, it gained quite a lot of press exposure. It got, you know, most of the big sort of cycling press picked it up. So because I think to them, it's like, oh yeah, it's Box Hill. Like, we know all about that. It's easy to talk about. It's an easy thing to write about.
Yeah.
But I would not recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it as a climb to do that kind of thing on to anyone, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure we would recommend it as a climb anyway, really.
No, I wouldn't.
Because of the amount of traffic and stuff around it.
And, you know, bear in mind, I started in the dark. I started at just gone 6 in the morning. So it was pitch black when I started. And it started to get light around, I think, it started to be noticeably light around 7:30. And then it's dark by 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're in the dark for a huge amount of it. And as I say, being what I would say is quite a technical descent makes it hard. The other point to raise about it is Box Hill is full of boy races at night. And so that in its own right is a challenge to deal with. Like, I mean, there was a very noticeably a high police presence, which is great. Really, really good. Like, I got pulled over by the coppers and they were asking, like, oh, what are you doing? And I explained to them, they were like, fine, we're around the area if you need anything, basically, which was really, really good. But there was definitely what I found at night time was that you get loads of like guys and girls, like, I say guys and girls are probably, you know, our kind of age, going up and down it in their cars and sitting in the car parks at the top. I'm pretty convinced they were all dogging, to be honest with you. But generally speaking, most people were very considerate, even in the middle of the night. But this would sort of be going on realistically, I think, from, you know, 4 o'clock to about 10 or 11 o'clock. So there's a lot of hours where you're dealing with people zooming up and down the climb. I think I had maybe 2 incidences with people where I had one where a guy passed very, very, very closely, very, very fast. And I was just like, you're a dick. And another one, which was some like drunk people shouted some shit out the window of a car. That was it. I don't know what they said. I think they're just trying to make me jump. But part of the pass away.
Yeah, that's it. How would you say that this challenge has compared to some of the other sort of challenges and events that you've done?
Mentally very tough. Mentally very, very tough. Physically not as hard as a 24-hour TT. Mentally tougher than a 24-hour TT.
Was it as tough as 107 for 107? Because obviously that was similar time of year, less time on the bike each day, but over a long period of time. And I know from having supported you on that, there were points when that was...
There's breaking points on that, very close breaking points. I still put that as one of the toughest things I've done. Which sounds like, the thing is with that challenge, people were like, there's quite a lot of people like, oh yeah, that sounds all right, it's doable, but no one has actually done it. So apart from me, so it's like no one actually has a comparable understanding of how it felt, really. I will still say that the 107 TDF is the hardest challenge I've done. There's no competition. 107 for 107 probably sits in second. And then I would say this trenching is probably on par with the National 24 last year. And I specifically say last year because last year was physically very hard for me because I'd got hit by the car not long before it. And I put quite a lot of pressure on myself last year. even though I got hit by a car, which I just shouldn't have put the pressure on myself. So I'd say that those two are on par, but for quite different reasons. And that is purely that physically the National 24 last year really, really broke me. As in, I couldn't ride. I couldn't ride on a bike. I'd lost a lot of feelings in my hand. I was really struggling with my back for a long time. And that was because of when I got hit by this, when I say car, it was a van. And that was 2 weeks before. So it's kind of like, I went into that race knowing it was going to suck. I remember we talked about it at the time, and you said to me, like, how are you feeling for this? And I was like, this is going to fucking hurt. And I know it's going to hurt. So I've just got to accept that. This Box Hill challenge, I was probably, of all of them, this is the one I've been the most nervous about, though. And I say that because I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't have anything comparable to it, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how I was going to feel. The only thing that I had comparable that was close to it was 24-hour TTs and riding so much in the winter from 107 to 107. But in reality, it's not comparable, really. It's a very different beast. And I was nervous about it because 107 TDF really tested me hard, really did. And I've always said this thing about like trying to find this limit and then being able to push through it. And I don't think I found that limit. I think I've got very close to it, very, very close to it this year, especially. But I don't think I've quite found it yet. I haven't found that what I call breaking point limit. And then inevitably when I do find it, I then need to work out how to go through that limit. But that's another thing to think about when that issue comes. But one of the reasons I was so concerned about this was because I knew how much 107 TDF took it out of me. And it, you look at all the numbers and the statistical stuff, like it was on paper, it's the hardest thing I've done. And I knew it, I felt like it was, I think, and the film, which will be coming out at the end of this week, because this is going to go live today, will be, I think you can kind of see it as it goes throughout. I'm quite chatty and jovial at the start, and progressively as it goes through, become way more blunt. And then feel like when I've been watching it, because we've been tweaking edits and stuff, I can feel that I can see a deterioration in me as a person as it goes on. And that deterioration sort of started after 5 days. So, really early on to it, there's still 15 more days to ride. Why I was nervous about this challenge was I didn't know how well recovered I was. I didn't know how I was going to feel. I'd basically took a month off the bike and then effectively gave myself a month to try and freshen up and I guess get in shape for it again, which is not a lot of time. And that's where my nerves was like, is this, I remember I was often thinking, I don't know if this is doable, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway and see what happens.
And final question, would you do it again?
No. Not Box Hill.
Trenching again, and would you ever go to Box Hill again? No. Would you do trenching again? Not on Box Hill?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I wouldn't do a trenching challenge on Box Hill again. It's done. I've done it now. Like, why would I want to do it again? There's no point going back there. It was hard enough as it was. I would like to do another trenching challenge. I would also actually like to properly do an Everest. Like I have Everested Brands Hatch race circuit, which could be classed as being an Everest or not. I have accidentally Everested on Zwift once, which was just because I was just doing a training session. So I didn't really realize that I did it, in all honesty. So I'd like to actually properly do one on a good climb for it. And same with the trenching challenge, do it on a good climb that's more suited to it. I feel like there's the potential that this challenge could be a recurring thing, targeting different climbs as a way to fundraise for Movember. And I'd be very keen to potentially do that, in all honesty, and encourage other people to get involved as well. More than happy to give any advice or tips on how my experience was. And the biggest experience and tip I can say is don't do it on Box Hill.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. All right then. Well, What's your what's the total funds raised now
For this challenge?
Yeah.
Let me have a look. I'm loading the Movember app. So the challenge through my Movember page is on £6,788.70.
That's awesome.
I also set up a team for Movember, which is quite cool because it allows you to like interact and chat with people. You can see it on there. It's quite cool. And that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's probably like 10 people in the team. So the team collectively, we've raised £9,189.
Awesome.
Which is,
sorry, go on.
It's incredible. It's really, really good.
And if people can and do want to donate, how would they do that?
I will put the link in the description for the podcast and in the description for the YouTube video. Otherwise, if you go to my website, and this is now me trying to remember what the link is. If you go to my website and go to the stories section, and there's a story there's an article called 91 Descents. And so the link is chriswillrise.com/where-I-ride/Movember. And through there is a massive donate button. And also the video, which our good friend Francis Cade filmed of me getting progressively more and more broken, is in the bottom of that page as well. So you can go and laugh at me getting fucked.
Awesome. And one final thing to mention, we talked about it a little bit before, but your custom painted Cervélo that you're auctioning off, when does that close?
So the custom Cervélo is an S3. The raffle will be closing on Christmas Eve, and I will draw it on Christmas Day. Did I do that right? I'm pretty sure that's what I did.
Fab.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to have a lot of little pieces of paper to cut up with names on, shall we say, as it stands. But yeah, that's, I think the last time I looked, I think was on £5,800, which is mind-blowing. So for everyone that's donated to that, or to Pace earlier, or to Movember, thank you. It means a lot to me, and it makes a huge, huge, massive difference to two incredible charities. More than you would ever realize as well. Much more than anyone would ever realize. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, congratulations, Chris. Well done.
Thank you so much, Emily. You are a hero. Let's at some point talk about what's going on with Attacus.
Yes, let's. I don't know what's going on at the moment. Yeah, we can maybe schedule something to talk about it maybe in the new year. The headline is we've moved office yet again, which is why, again, I've got a different background behind me. But hopefully for the last time, because I am done with moving. It's annoying.
Yeah, let's try and talk about it in the summer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll actually be able to see you in real life in the summer as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice, wouldn't it?
Fingers crossed.